When I decided to attend a party with my wife's lover, I never imagined that this evening would forever change our lives and reveal the most shocking truth about betrayal I could ever witness. Everything started 3 months ago when I accidentally stumbled upon a message on Sandra's phone. My wife and I had lived together for 8 years, and I had never suspected her of dishonesty. I work as a mechanic at an auto service, while Sandra teaches at the local college. It seemed like we had everything going well between us. But that day when she asked me to check something on her phone while she was in the shower, I saw a message from someone named Michael. "Can't wait for tomorrow night, darling," it read. I, Larry Thompson, an ordinary 35-year-old man, suddenly felt the world turn upside down. But instead of immediately confronting everything, I decided to conduct my own investigation. And what I discovered over the following weeks shocked me more than the betrayal itself. Michael Anderson turned out to be not just my wife's lover. He was a married man with 2 children, a successful lawyer who lived in a luxurious suburban district. And the most interesting part, his wife Jennifer knew everything about it. Yes, you understood correctly. Jennifer Anderson not only knew about her husband's affair, she approved of it. Moreover, she herself was having an affair with one of Michael's partners at the law firm. For a month, I gathered information, followed Sandra, photographed their meetings. I discovered they met every Tuesday and Thursday at the Marriott downtown. I learned about their weekend getaways to the mountains. I found receipts for expensive dinners, jewelry purchases, even a weekend trip to Las Vegas that Sandra had told me was a work conference. But the biggest shock awaited me when I learned that Jennifer was planning a grand party for her 40th birthday, and she personally invited me. Imagine my reaction when an unknown woman called me and said, "Hello, Larry. I'm Jennifer Anderson, Michael's wife. I know about your marital problems and I want to invite you to my party. I think we should talk." I could have refused, could have simply presented Sandra with evidence of the betrayal and filed for divorce. But something in Jennifer's voice intrigued me. She didn't sound like an offended wife, but like a person who had a plan. Over the next few days I couldn't stop thinking about that phone call. What did Jennifer want from me? Why was she so calm about her husband's affair? I decided to do more digging, and what I found was even more shocking. Through some careful research and a few strategic conversations with people who knew the Andersons, I discovered that Jennifer and Michael had been living essentially separate lives for over 2 years. They maintained the facade of a happy marriage for social and business reasons, but behind closed doors, they were both involved with other people. Jennifer's affair with Richard Stone, Michael's law partner, had been going on for almost as long as Michael's affair with Sandra. But here's where it gets interesting: Jennifer had been documenting everything. Every affair, every lie, every financial transaction that Michael thought he was hiding. The party was held at the Andersons' luxurious suburban estate. When I arrived, I was greeted by an elegant blonde in a black cocktail dress. Jennifer was a beautiful woman, but in her eyes I saw cold determination. "Larry, how wonderful that you came," she said, shaking my hand. "Michael will be thrilled. He doesn't know I invited you." The mansion was impressive, a sprawling 2-story colonial with perfectly manicured gardens and a circular driveway filled with expensive cars. Inside, the house was decorated with taste and obvious wealth. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and artwork that probably cost more than my annual salary. And then began the strangest party of my life. Guests gradually appeared, and among them I recognized several of Sandra's colleagues, some of Michael's friends, but what surprised me most was when I saw my wife enter, holding hands with Michael. Sandra's face turned white as chalk when she saw me. Michael looked confused, but Jennifer just smiled and asked everyone to proceed to the living room. The living room was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the garden. About 30 people had gathered, all seemingly successful professionals in their 30s and 40s. The atmosphere was sophisticated, with soft jazz playing in the background and waiters serving expensive champagne. "Friends," she began solemnly, raising a glass of champagne, "today is a special day. Today we're celebrating not only my 40th birthday, but also new beginnings in our lives." The tension in the room could be cut with a knife. Sandra nervously looked around, searching for an exit. Michael tried to understand what was happening. And I just waited. "Michael," Jennifer continued, "tell everyone how long you've been dating Sandra." Silence. Michael opened his mouth but couldn't utter a word. "Well then I'll tell you," said Jennifer with a cold smile. 6 months. For 6 months my husband has been dating Larry's wife. For 6 months they thought they were so clever that no one would expose them. Sandra tried to say something, but Jennifer interrupted her. "And you know what's funniest? I knew everything from the very beginning. Moreover, I approved of it because I myself was tired of pretending to be a happy wife. Here she turned to me. Larry, show everyone the photos you've been taking the last few weeks. I took out my phone and began showing the pictures I had taken. Sandra and Michael at restaurants, their kisses near hotels, their walks in parks. Each photo was like a slap in the face for my wife. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. And now, said Jennifer, I want to introduce you to my lawyer, Richard Stone. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit entered the room. The same man with whom, as I had learned, Jennifer was having an affair. Richard has prepared divorce documents for both our families, she continued. Michael, you're losing half your assets, custody of the children, and thanks to our prenuptial agreement, you'll have to pay me alimony for the rest of your life. Michael went pale. Jennifer, you can't. I can and I will. And the best part is that all the guests here tonight are witnesses to your betrayal. Including 2 of your partners from the firm, who, by the way, already know about your unethical behavior. I watched this scene like a movie. Jennifer wasn't just getting revenge on her husband, she was destroying his career, reputation, and future with one strike. But she wasn't finished yet. Jennifer walked over to a large screen that had been set up in the corner of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a little presentation for you. The screen lit up with what appeared to be a timeline. This is a comprehensive documentation of my husband's affairs over the past 3 years. Not just with Sandra, but with 2 other women before her. The room gasped. Sandra's face showed pure shock. She had no idea she wasn't the only one. Michael has a pattern, Jennifer continued, advancing to the next slide. He targets married women, preferably those whose husbands work blue-collar jobs. He makes them feel special, takes them to expensive places, and makes promises he never intends to keep. The next slide showed financial records. He's also been embezzling money from our joint accounts to finance these affairs. Over $50,000 in the past year alone. Now Michael wasn't just pale, he looked like he might faint. Several of his colleagues in the room were taking notes, and I could see them already distancing themselves from him. Then she turned to me. Larry, I have a proposition. I know you work as a mechanic, but I need a manager for my new auto workshop. The salary is twice your current one. I was stunned. This woman wasn't just getting revenge on her husband, she was offering me a new life. But Jennifer still had more surprises. Sandra, dear, would you like to tell Larry about the baby? The room fell silent. Sandra went from pale to green. What baby? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Oh, you didn't know? Jennifer's smile was almost predatory now. Sandra is 8 weeks pregnant. She's been trying to figure out whose it is, yours or Michael's. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. Sandra was pregnant, and she didn't even know who the father was? Jennifer, please? Sandra started, but Jennifer cut her off. The blood test will tell us everything we need to know. Richard has already arranged for the testing to be done tomorrow. Michael finally found his voice. This is insane. Jennifer, what you're doing is... What I'm doing is called justice, Jennifer replied calmly. You've been lying to me for 3 years, stealing money from our family, and destroying other people's marriages. Did you think there would be no consequences? She walked over to another table and picked up a thick folder. These are divorce papers. You'll sign them tonight, or I'll make sure these financial records and photos find their way to the State Bar Association tomorrow morning. The power in the room had completely shifted. Jennifer controlled everything and everyone knew it. Sandra finally found her voice. Larry, I can explain everything. There's nothing to explain, I said calmly. Richard, can you prepare divorce documents for us as well? I want Sandra to receive the minimum that the law provides. Our house, our car, our savings, everything was bought with my money before marriage. Sandra's face showed pure horror. She thought that in case of divorce she would get half of everything, not knowing that most of our property was registered in my name before we got married. But I wasn't done. Standing up, I addressed the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to witness something. Sandra, for 8 years I trusted you completely. I worked extra hours to pay for your master's degree. I supported your career when you wanted to change jobs. I even took out a loan to buy you that car you wanted so badly. I turned to Michael. And you, Michael, you knew I existed. You knew Sandra was married, had a husband who loved her, and you pursued her anyway. You're not just an adulterer, you're a predator. The room was completely silent except for the soft jazz still playing in the background. Jennifer smiled approvingly. Larry speaks the truth. And now, Michael, you're going to face the consequences. Not just from me but from your children, your colleagues, and everyone who trusted you. She turned to the crowd. Michael's law license will be suspended pending investigation. The financial irregularities I've uncovered will be reported to the authorities. And the prenuptial agreement he thought would protect him? It has a morality clause that he's violated spectacularly. The party ended in catastrophe. Michael lost everything: family, career, property. Sandra was left with nothing but the small amount she was entitled to by law, and the uncertainty of a pregnancy that might not even be mine. Several guests approached me afterward, expressing their sympathy and outrage at what had been done to me. Two of them were business owners who offered me job opportunities. It seemed that Jennifer's public exposure had worked in my favor as well. As people began to leave, Jennifer approached me one final time. "Larry, I know this has been overwhelming, but I want you to know that I planned this evening carefully. You deserve to know the truth, and you deserve to have witnesses to that truth." She handed me a business card. "Call me next week about that job offer." I meant every word of it. A month after the party, I signed the divorce papers. Sandra begged me to give her another chance, but it was too late. The trust we had built over years was destroyed in one night. The paternity test results came back 2 weeks later. The baby was Michael's, not mine. Sandra was now pregnant with the child of a man who had lost his law license, his family, and his fortune. Michael lost his attorney's license due to ethical violations. His firm couldn't afford to keep a partner with such a scandal. Jennifer got all his assets and moved to California with Richard. Sandra had to leave her teaching job due to the scandal and the stress of the pregnancy. She moved back with her parents in Ohio, a decision that probably saved her from complete financial ruin. As for me, I took Jennifer's job offer and found myself managing a high-end auto restoration shop. The pay was excellent, and I discovered I had a talent for the business side of things. Within 6 months, I had increased the shop's revenue by 40%. I also learned that Jennifer's revenge had been years in the planning. She had known about Michael's pattern of affairs and had been gathering evidence the entire time. She had waited for the right moment to strike, and that moment came when she realized that Michael was serious about Sandra, serious enough to potentially leave his family. A year later, I received a wedding invitation. Jennifer and Richard were getting married in Napa Valley. At the bottom, she had written a personal note: "Thank you for being brave enough to face the truth. You deserve better, and I hope you find it." I did find better. 6 months after the divorce was final, I met Sarah, a veterinarian who had recently moved to town. She was kind, honest, and had no patience for games or lies. We took things slowly, building trust carefully. When I told her about Sandra and the betrayal, she listened without judgment and then said, "The people who hurt us in the past don't get to determine our future." 2 years later, Sarah and I got married in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Jennifer sent a generous gift and a card that read, "Sometimes the best revenge is living well." Sandra tried to contact me several times over the years. The baby was born healthy, but Michael refused to acknowledge paternity despite the DNA test. She was raising the child alone, working as a substitute teacher and struggling financially. I felt no satisfaction in her struggles, but I also felt no guilt about my choices. She had made her bed, as they say, and now she had to lie in it. The auto shop continued to thrive under my management. I eventually bought Jennifer out and became the sole owner. I hired several mechanics who had been laid off from other shops, and we built a reputation for quality work and honest dealing. Michael ended up working as a clerk in a legal aid office in another state. His ex-wife Jennifer had been thorough in her destruction of his career and reputation. The legal community is small, and word travels fast about lawyers who violate ethical standards. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had never gone to that party, if I had simply confronted Sandra privately and filed for divorce quietly. But then I realized that Jennifer's public exposure served a purpose beyond revenge. It warned other potential victims about Michael's behavior and showed that there are consequences for betrayal. The most surprising part of the whole experience was how it changed my perspective on relationships and trust. I learned that trust isn't just about believing someone won't betray you, it's about choosing people who have the character to be trustworthy in the first place. Sandra had shown signs of selfish behavior throughout our marriage, but I had excused them as minor flaws. Michael had a reputation as a ladies' man, but his colleagues had overlooked it because he was successful. Jennifer, on the other hand, had observed, documented, and waited for the right moment to act with devastating precision. The party became legendary in our social circle. People still talk about the night Jennifer Anderson destroyed her husband at gatherings. It became a cautionary tale about the dangers of betrayal and the power of a woman who has been pushed too far. For me, it became the night I learned that sometimes life gives you exactly what you need, even if it comes wrapped in the most unexpected package. I needed to know the truth about my marriage, I needed to see Sandra's true character, and I needed the opportunity to start over with someone who truly valued honesty and commitment. The last I heard, Sandra was working at a community college in Ohio, still single, still raising Michael's child alone. Michael was remarried to someone who apparently doesn't mind his history, though I wonder if she knows the whole story. Jennifer and Richard are living in California, running a successful consulting business together. They seem happy and I genuinely hope they are. She took a terrible situation and turned it into an opportunity for justice and new beginnings. As for me, I learned that the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living with integrity, surrounding yourself with people who share your values, and never settling for less than you deserve. That party changed my life in ways I never could have imagined, and while I wouldn't wish betrayal on anyone, I'm grateful for where it led me. Sometimes life has a way of removing the wrong people from your path to make room for the right ones. Sandra's betrayal hurt deeply, but it also freed me to find real love with someone who deserved my trust. And that, I realized, was the greatest revenge of all. But the story doesn't end there. 3 years after the infamous party, I received a phone call that would bring everything full circle in the most unexpected way. It was a Tuesday evening when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something compelled me to answer. "Larry? This is Detective Martinez with the Dallas Police Department. I need to speak with you about Michael Anderson." My blood ran cold. What could Michael have possibly done now that required police involvement? "Mr. Thompson, I understand you were involved in a civil matter with Mr. Anderson several years ago. We're investigating him for fraud and embezzlement, and we believe you may have information that could help our case." It turned out that Michael's pattern of behavior hadn't stopped after the divorce. Unable to practice law, he had reinvented himself as a financial advisor. Using his charm and legal background, he had convinced dozens of people to invest their life savings in fake investment schemes. "The total amount we're looking at is over $2 million, Detective Martinez explained during our meeting the next day. Most of his victims were middle-aged women going through divorces. He promised them financial security and then disappeared with their money. I felt sick to my stomach. This was worse than adultery, this was destroying people's entire futures. "We have Jennifer Anderson's documentation from your case," the detective continued. "Her evidence shows a pattern of predatory behavior that supports our current investigation. Would you be willing to testify about what you witnessed?" Of course I agreed. Jennifer had been right all along. Michael wasn't just unfaithful, he was fundamentally corrupt. The trial took place 8 months later. I sat in the courtroom as victim after victim testified about how Michael had seduced them emotionally and financially. Women who had trusted him with their divorce settlements, their children's college funds, their retirement savings. Michael looked different now, older, thinner, desperate. The confident attorney was gone, replaced by a man who knew his lies were finally catching up with him. When I took the stand, I told the story of the party, of Jennifer's meticulous documentation, of how Michael had shown no remorse for destroying marriages and families. "Mr. Thompson," the prosecutor asked, "in your opinion, based on what you witnessed, was Mr. Anderson's affair with your wife part of a larger pattern of predatory behavior?" "Absolutely," I replied, looking directly at Michael. "He targeted vulnerable women and used their emotions against them. What he did to my marriage was just practice for what he did to these innocent investors." Michael was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His victims would likely never recover their money, but at least he couldn't hurt anyone else. After the trial, I was approached by Maria Santos, one of Michael's victims. She was a widow in her 50s who had lost her entire life savings. "Mr. Thompson," she said with tears in her eyes, "thank you for testifying. I know it couldn't have been easy to relive all of that. Mrs. Santos, I'm so sorry for what he did to you. If I had known he would continue hurting people." "You couldn't have known," she interrupted. "But you did the right thing when it mattered." That conversation haunted me for weeks. I realized that my silence could have enabled Michael to hurt even more people. Jennifer's public exposure hadn't just been about revenge, it had been about justice and prevention. I decided to reach out to Jennifer to tell her about the trial. She was still living in California with Richard, and they had started a non-profit organization that helped fraud victims navigate the legal system. "Larry," she said when she answered the phone, "I heard about Michael's conviction. I can't say I'm surprised. Jennifer, I wanted to thank you. What you did at that party, it wasn't just about getting back at Michael. You documented everything because you knew he would strike again." She was quiet for a moment. "I did it because I couldn't live with myself if I stayed silent and he hurt other people. Michael was never going to change. Men like him don't change. What about Sandra? I asked. Have you heard anything? Actually, yes. She reached out to me about 6 months ago. She wanted to apologize for her part in everything. She's working as a guidance counselor now, helping teenagers make better choices. I think becoming a mother changed her perspective. I was surprised by this news. Sandra had tried to contact me several times over the years, but I had never responded. Part of me was curious about how she was doing, but a larger part of me had moved on completely. She asked about you, Jennifer continued. She wanted to know if you were happy. I told her you were married to a wonderful woman and running a successful business. I think it gave her some closure to know that you landed on your feet. That night, I told Sarah about the conversation. We were sitting on our back porch watching our 2-year-old daughter play in the yard. Sarah was pregnant with our second child, and life felt perfect in a way I had never imagined possible. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had tried to work things out with Sandra? Sarah asked. I considered the question seriously. No, I said finally. Sandra's affair wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was a choice she made repeatedly for months. And knowing what I know now about Michael, I realized she was probably being manipulated, but she also let herself be manipulated because it served her purposes. Sarah nodded. I'm glad you didn't try to save that marriage. Some things can't be fixed and some people aren't worth fixing them for. The next morning, I received an unexpected visitor at the auto shop. It was Sandra. She looked older, more tired, but also somehow more genuine than I remembered. Gone was the polished college professor look, replaced by simple jeans and a t-shirt. She was clearly nervous. Larry, I hope it's okay that I came by. I know you never answered my calls. What do you want, Sandra? I asked, not unkindly but not warmly either. I wanted to apologize. Really apologize. Not just for the affair but for how I handled everything. I was selfish and cruel, and I hurt you in ways that were unforgivable. She paused, gathering her courage. I also wanted to thank you. Thank me? For not taking me back. For being strong enough to walk away. If you had forgiven me, I never would have learned how to be a better person. Losing you, losing everything, it forced me to look at myself honestly for the first time in my life. I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or self-pity, but I saw only genuine remorse. How's your son? I asked. Sandra's face lit up slightly. He's amazing. He's 5 now, and he's this incredible little person who sees the world with such wonder. Being his mother has taught me what real love is supposed to look like. And Michael? Her expression darkened. He signed away his parental rights before he went to prison. He never wanted to be a father anyway. My son is better off without him. We stood in uncomfortable silence for a moment before Sandra spoke again. I know you're married now and happy. Jennifer told me. I'm genuinely glad for you, Larry. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. We both deserved better, I replied. But we made different choices about how to handle that. Sandra nodded. I should go. I needed you to know that I'm sorry, and that I'm grateful for who I became because of losing you. After she left, I felt an unexpected sense of closure. For years, I had carried anger and resentment towards Sandra. Seeing her genuinely changed, genuinely remorseful, didn't erase what she had done, but it allowed me to let go of the last bit of bitterness I had been carrying. That evening, I shared the encounter with Sarah. She listened thoughtfully and then said, "It sounds like she's finally grown up. Too bad it took losing everything for her to do it. Maybe some people need to hit rock bottom before they can build themselves back up properly," I mused. Maybe. But I'm glad you didn't sacrifice your happiness to be her rock bottom. 5 years have passed since that conversation with Sandra. My auto shop has grown into 3 locations, Sarah and I have 3 beautiful children, and life continues to exceed my expectations in every way. I occasionally see updates about the people from that dramatic period of my life. Michael is still in prison and will be for many more years. Jennifer and Richard's nonprofit has helped recover millions of dollars for fraud victims. Sandra completed her master's degree in counseling and works with at-risk youth. Sometimes I think about that party at Jennifer's house, about how one evening changed so many lives so dramatically. It was the end of my first marriage, but it was also the beginning of my real life. It taught me that sometimes destruction is necessary for construction, that sometimes you have to tear down what's broken before you can build something better. The most important lesson I learned is that betrayal says nothing about your worth and everything about the character of the person who betrayed you. Sandra's affair wasn't a reflection of my inadequacies as a husband, it was a reflection of her inadequacies as a person at that time in her life. I hope she's found peace and continues to grow. I hope Michael eventually finds genuine remorse and uses his remaining years to somehow make amends. I hope Jennifer and Richard continue their important work helping others. As for me, I found something I never had with Sandra, a partnership based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine love. Sarah and I face challenges together instead of creating them for each other. We build each other up instead of tearing each other down. That's what real love looks like, and it's what I never want to take for granted again. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.